and welcome to Crumbs and Doilies in Soho, and it just feels like forever since I gave you a cupcake recipe. So I thought I'd give you a Crumbs and Doilies original, and since it's the Oscars next week, I thought what goes better together than popcorn and movies. So I'm going to show you how to make our buttered popcorn cupcakes. So without further ado, let's get going. So this cupcake is going to be a delicious combination of a brown butter sponge with salted caramel icing, salty popcorn and a drizzle of caramel at the end. But the first thing we need to do just to get ready is the brown butter, and this stuff is absolutely delicious. It's butter, but it's kind of slightly burnt and it creates a really nice nutty flavour, like an almost uber buttery flavour, which is going to be perfect for these cupcakes. But you do need to make it in advance because it needs to have time to just kind of settle and solidify a little bit so that it's the right consistency. So I've got a pan here and I've got 100 grams of unsalted butter. I'm going to pop that on. And you just need to melt that over a medium-low heat, stirring all the time. And after a few minutes, it turns a really lovely golden brown colour with loads of little nutty bits in it. Once you're happy with the colour of your butter, you want to get it out of this hot pan because it will keep cooking otherwise, and just pour it into a bowl so it can cool down. And it needs to cool down to kind of firm up a little bit because it needs to be at a spreadable consistency when we bake it. So that's going to take about 45 minutes to an hour just at room temperature, but make sure you give it a stir every now and then so that it does that evenly. I'm back and the butter has solidified a little bit, so it's gone kind of whippy and spreadable, which is perfect. But we started off with 100 grams of that butter, and obviously a bit of water is evaporated, so it's a little bit less than 100 grams, but we need 125 grams of butter in total. So I'm topping that up with regular softened unsalted butter. And then straight into the bowl, you want to put your flour and your sugar, but sieve it all through first. So I've got 125 grams of self-raising flour, 60 grams of caster sugar, and 65 grams of dark soft brown sugar. And also a quarter of a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda, and then you just want to push that through the sieve. And then I'm going to add 2 large free-range eggs and then put it onto my mixer and give it a good beat for about a minute. And then once it's had a minute, you can turn the speed right down to minimum and add 1 tablespoon of whole milk. And then just beat that on a medium speed for another 30 seconds. That is ready, and it already smells really good because of that yummy brown butter. So as usual, I'm going to put this into 12 regular sized cupcake cases, but I'm using red and white stripy ones this time because it's a film-related Oscars extravaganza. You can find all sorts of cases online, gold ones even for the Oscars glamour. And I've got my spoons as usual. I'm just going to start scooping. And then these just need to be baked at 170 degrees C for 18 to 20 minutes until they're nice and springy on the top. My cakes are just cooling down, so I'm going to make the buttercream, the salted caramel buttercream. I'm going to start by beating 200 grams of soft unsalted butter until it's pale and fluffy. So that's been beating for 5 minutes or thereabouts, and it's ready to have the icing sugar put in. So I've got 320 grams of icing sugar, which I've already sifted, and as usual, I'm going to put it in 2 stages, beating really well in between each stage. So that's nearly there. The last thing I'm putting in is some salted caramel. I've just made a batch of my regular salted caramel. I'll put a link to that in the description box below, and I'm using 200 grams of that. And I'm just going to pour it in and give it a really good beat till it's all smooth. And that is ready, and this is hands down one of my favourite icings of all time. It's just so good. So I'm going to put this under some cling film just so it doesn't dry out. The cakes are still a little bit warm. I'm going to wait for them to cool down. Then I'm going to make some popcorn and get these cakes decorated. It's popcorn time. Now you can cheat and buy ready-made popcorn, and that is absolutely fine if you want to go ahead and do that, but it is so easy to make popcorn and it's mega cheap too, so I would always recommend making your own, plus it's fun. you know. So I've got a pan here and I'm going to put a tablespoon of vegetable oil along with about 10 grams of butter. You can use unsalted butter or salted if you want. And the trick to good popcorn is to get this stuff really hot before you put the kernels in. So put that over a medium heat. So once your oil is nice and hot, you can put your kernels of popcorn in. I'm using 70 grams. You want to make sure that you've got a pan that's big enough to contain it all once it's popped. And give it a really good stir with a wooden spoon just to make sure all the popcorn is coated with that hot oil, and then you can put the lid on. And it's going to take a minute or so before things start cooking and popping. And once it does, you want to give your pan a good shake with the lid on every minute or so that it heats evenly. And then when it stops popping, you can take it off the heat. And I don't know about you, but I'm a massive fan of both salty and sweet mixed together at the cinema. I can just never choose between the two. But because this cupcake is already quite sweet, obviously we've got the salted caramel icing, which is really sweet, I'm just going to put some salt and no sugar on this popcorn. So a good generous pinch of salt. Give it a really, really good mix. So that's nice and salty now. So I'm just going to have a bit of a clear down and then get everything back on my table and finish these guys off. Got loads of popcorn stuck in my teeth. And it's time to decorate. So I've got my cool cupcakes. They are looking really awesome with their little stripy jackets on. I've got my buttercream in a piping bag. I've got some extra salted caramel that I'm going to drizzle on afterwards. And I've also got my salty popcorn. It's important to know though, if you put your popcorn on and leave it on the buttercream for too long, it tends to go really chewy, which is not what you want. So I would recommend decorating these not too far in advance of eating them, because otherwise it's going to be a little bit weird. So let's get decorating. And that is the finished cupcake, which I think you'll agree is absolutely epic and perfect for your Oscars party. I haven't actually seen all the Oscar-nominated films this year, but I have seen Black Panther, which I thought was ace, and I've seen The Favourite, and I think that one is my favourite, and I really hope it wins. Which films have you seen? Maybe you could predict what's going to win in the comments box below. I'd love to see. So also, I hope you've been enjoying the Tuesday tips we've been doing with the Crumbs Doilies team. We're having lots of fun doing that. And also, don't forget that this Sunday is our second classic cake bake-along. So I've already put the shopping list to that on my Instagram feed at CupcakeJemma. So make sure you check that out so that you're ready. And if you're in the area in Soho this weekend, we'll have these in store, so make sure you come down and get yourself one. You can also pick up my merch here, so things like my lovely oven gloves and lots of other yummy things. So please come on down and I will see you at 11 AM this Sunday. Bye bye. I'm just going to eat these one by one. Makes you last longer.